Hi, I'm Rachel, and this is my Friday Reads video for August 16th, 2019. I was going to say that this was an awkward reading week for me because I didn't finish anything, but that's not actually true. I finished this short story collection, The Pale of Settlement by Margot Singer, finally! Anyway, this is a short story collection of interconnected short stories about this woman, Susan, and her Israeli family, basically. I gotta say, I liked the last few stories more than the first ones, although I guess I'm biased because I read them much more recently. The titular story is the final one, and it touches upon family stories that Susan's mother, Leah, told her while falling asleep, and it kind of shifted her worldview, or, formed her worldview, so that was interesting. And my favorite story, Hazor, I think I talked about, I might have put it under the wrong name in one of my older videos, but it's about her uncle, Avraham, who's an archaeologist, and while he's trying to discern what you can say is truth and fiction about, the Bronze Age, he's also trying to gather truth out of a incomplete diary from his sister Leah, so I like that juxtaposition. Otherwise, I guess I didn't like this collection as much as I hoped I would. I thought a lot about main characters who are too reactive, and sort of a trope, I guess, as it were, in Jewish fiction written by women about these female characters who are always adrift and commitment phobic and in questionable sexual relationships, and it just seems to be getting old to me. I would just wish we had a little more to offer, and some of these stories really do. My favorite Susan-centric story is Body Count, and it's about her reporting during the Second Intifada, and it's a lot about what can and can't be expressed to the public through news media, how difficult it is to get to the truth amidst so much conflict. I don't know, I was touched by the intricacies and the intimacy about how difficult it is to, see a conflict as white hat versus black hat when things on the ground are more complicated. That's what I got out of it. Anyway, so a decent collection. Glad I'm finally finished. Next on my list of almost finished is The Singer's Gun by Emily St. John Mandel. I'm doing a personal author backlist reading project of Mandel this month. I'm also filming this early to get it up on Friday, so I hope to be finishing it on Friday. This is a story about a man called Anton Walker, and he comes from a family of swindlers, basically. His parents operate a store of stolen goods in Brooklyn, and his cousin Arya is involved in fraud. She starts by selling faked passports and social security cards to undocumented immigrants in the U.S., and then she gets into more nefarious means, of which Anton doesn't know much about. He's trying to get out of the business, but he ends up getting roped in for this final job, and he's sort of stranded in Ischia off of the coast of Naples, which is making me think of My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. Anyway, I think it's similar to the last story. I'm finding it compelling, although not great, and certainly not on the level of Station 11, but it's interesting to take a dip into her backlist. And right now, I gotta confess, I'm feeling in dire straits about a cat in this story who's about to get on an international flight. Just a lot of my emotional capital right now is invested to make sure the cat makes it through the flight okay. At least I hope so. Then I have The Remains of Love by Zeruya Shalev, which I am reading for Women in Translation Month. I talked about this book in a bit of detail in my last video on literary fiction, because this is a very deep dive into thick stream of consciousness literary fiction, and I'm finding it difficult to read quickly, so I'm trying to read it slowly. That being said, I like the idea of reading multiple books at once, but it still always is a question of juggling. I haven't actually gotten to this book in a while, so I'm hoping to make some strides over the weekend. The next book I really thought I'd be finished with, I hoped I would be, but I'm not, is A Memory Called Empire by Arkady Martine. This is science fiction kind of based off of the Byzantine Empire, I would say, because she's a scholar in that and is fascinated by the idea of empires that subsume cultures around them and sort of become this jewel of civilization that everybody emulates. So she creates a space version, basically, of the Byzantine Empire called Texkalan. The crazy thing is, I've been listening to the audiobook and I still had to look up how to say that. It's a crazy word. Anyway, the main character is an ambassador from a space station, Vasil, which may or may not get consumed into the Empire. There's lots of twists and turns. I've been thinking a bit about this book, which is sometimes written in a relatively dry style. Like, I feel like I can tell that Martine has an academic background. And I've also been thinking of other science fiction that I've read that's sort of based more on systems than anything else. Like, for example, the Malka Older books, which is bringing politics into the future. And then Ada Palmer's Terra Ignota series, which kind of takes the Enlightenment and throws it into the future. I think in some ways A Memory Called Empire is too similar to those books. Like, it is a little too academic and the characters are relatively thin and, plot-driven. But I think I still am finding it more approachable. I'm debating if I should continue with the series or not. I think there's a few reasons for that. A big part of it is how Martine focuses on culture, which I guess I find more approachable than philosophy or politics. And I also think that in a way the machinations of the world are less futuristic. They're more ingrained in our ideas of empires that have already existed, rather than the idea of post-nation states. And maybe as a minority culture myself, being Jewish, reading about another minority culture within a big empire, I feel some affiliation. Also, I think I have to admit that there is a little more action in this book, or at least more standard space opera action. In fact, there's a whole lot of action that happens like within a 4-day period, to the point where, along with the main character, I just keep on thinking about sleep and how to get it. So yeah. I had gotten this book out on audiobook, trying to inch it into time when I can't read a physical book, but unfortunately I didn't plan my time all that well, and with an hour and a half left to go, the library snatched it on back. And of course there's a long waiting list to get it out again, but there's less of a waiting list to get the book in print, so I'm hoping to have it back in my hands soon to finish the story. And I have to admit, I think having a print version would be helpful for me, because it is pretty dense in terms of world building. If this thing has a glossary, I might want to take a look at it. And finally, since I still want to keep looking ahead in my reading, I have what's next on my docket. This is Oksana Behave by Maria Kuznetsova. I'm reading this book for my book club. I'm also excited because it's a 2019 release, which I might be able to count as literary fiction, or as the fiction category for the Goodreads Readers' Choice Awards. I'm always looking to see if I can find something to vote for. So far, my 2019 literary mainstream fiction reading hasn't been great. I mean, it's been okay, but nothing's really stunned me yet, so it could be this. I'm not sure, because this is a more comic novel, I believe, and that's not usually my style, but I want to give it a chance. So here's what it says on the flap. When Oksana's family begins their new American life in Florida after immigrating from Ukraine, her physicist father delivers pizza at night to make ends meet. Her depressed mother sits home all day worrying, and her flamboyant grandmother relishes the attention she gets when she walks Oksana to school, not realizing that the street they're walking down is known as Prostitute Street. Oksana just wants to have friends and lead a normal life, and though she constantly tries to do the right thing, she keeps on getting herself into trouble. As she grows up, she continues to misbehave, from somewhat accidentally maiming the school bus bully, to stealing the much-coveted and expensive-to-replace key to the New York City's Gramercy Park, to falling in love with a married man. As her grandmother moves back to Ukraine, her father gets a job at Goldman Sachs, and her mother knits endless scarves, Oksana longs for a Russia that looms large in her imagination, but is a country she never really knew. When she visits her grandmother in Yalta and learns about Baba's wartime past and her lost loves, Oksana begins to see just how alike they are, and comes to a new understanding of how to embrace life and love without causing harm to the people dearest to her. But will Oksana ever quite learn to behave? Well, we have this middle finger pointing straight up, so who knows? I guess I'll find out soon. So that about covers it for me now, although I have no idea how I'm going to manage my weekend. I do want to spend significant time on Saturday working on my novella now that I have my go out to a cafe computer back from the shop with a new keyboard, huzzah! Anyway, I really want to take the time to get back on track with my editing of the novella. But as for these books, I don't know. Well, I can't do anything with a memory called Empire yet because I don't have it. I guess I'm hoping Friday I'll officially finish The Singer's Gun. Then at least get a few chapters more into the Shalev book, hopefully, and finally start Oksana Behave when I can on Saturday. I'd love it if I could finish it before Monday. But we'll see how it goes. I will be back here, shamefaced or not, in a week to report on my progress. Hope you're all doing well with yours. In the meantime, thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I'll see you next time.